Welcome to ATCM, the Emergency Medicine channel. Today we are discussing about different types of fever. You know that nowadays we are getting various types of fever. It can be infectious fever, it can be non-infectious fever, it can be due to malignancy. But to differentiate all these things, it is very difficult, especially in emergency room when we are seeing different types of fever, high degree fever, low degree fever, prolonged fever. We will be having difficulty in making a diagnosis. So if we know the differential diagnosis of most common fevers which occurring in our country, it will be easy for us. So definition of fever is an elevation of core body temperature above the normal circadian range as result of change in the thermoregulatory center in the anterior hypothalamus. So in the anterior hypothalamus, our body temperature is controlled. Whenever there is an infection or inflammation, that increases the body temperature, that is called as fever. Normal body temperature varies over course of the day. So during morning and evening time the temperature will be different, controlled again by the thermoregulatory center in our body. Fever occurs when body sets the core temperature to a higher temperature. The thermostat setting in the hypothalamic thermoregulatory center shifts upwards during the fever. For an example, 37 to 39 degrees Celsius. So thermoregulatory center increases the fever set point or temperature set point, then we feel the fever. There is another condition called as feverish feeling. That is not actually fever. Many patients complain that I have fever, but when we examine the patient or when we use the thermometer, we don't see actual fever, but they have feverish feeling, chills, all these things. That may be a inflammation which is coming down. So during acute phase we have fever, but on the period, on the duration, it slowly comes down, and one point we don't clinically get fever, but patients still have this feverish feeling. So many patients have that feverish feeling, that is not fever, but still there is an inflammation inside our body. Now you can see the normal temperature is 37 degrees Celsius or 98 degree Fahrenheit. It can be like this, 36.8 plus or minus 4 degrees Celsius or 98.2 plus or minus 0.7 Fahrenheit. Oral temperature is 0.6 degrees Celsius, 1 degree or Fahrenheit higher than the axilla. Rectal temperature is 0.4 degrees Celsius or 0.7 degree Fahrenheit higher than oral temperature. So normally in our clinical examination we always prefer to do a oral temperature. Maximum oral temperature is morning 6 am, that circadian rhythm is there, already we have described, 37.2 degrees Celsius or 98.9 degree Fahrenheit. 4 to 6 pm, that is evening time, 37.7 degrees Celsius or 99.9 degree Fahrenheit. That's why when we see the patient, if it is more than 100 degree Fahrenheit, we always tell there is fever. But many patients have feverish feeling. When it is 99 itself, many patients complain that I have feverish feeling when there is a minimal inflammation or recovering phase of an inflammation or infection. Diurnal variation is 1 degree Fahrenheit. Now the diagnostic criteria for fever is AM temperature more than 37.2 degrees Celsius or 98.9 degree Fahrenheit. PM temperature, that is evening temperature, 37.7 degree Celsius or 99.9 degree Fahrenheit. So this type of mercury thermometers are available for our use, doctors use, but it will be very difficult to find out what is the temperature from the mercury thermometer for an untrained person. For a untrained person, you can use digital thermometer. Now hyperpyrexia is one condition which is not exactly fever, it is slightly different. Fever differs from uncontrolled hyperthermia. In that, hyperthermia is an increase in body temperature over the body's thermoregulatory set point. It is not set by the thermoregulatory set point, it is above that due to excessive heat production and insufficient thermoregulation. So that is not done by the thermoregulatory center, due to something else the body temperature increases. Thermoregulatory center is unable to control that excessive heat production. That is hyperpyrexia. We are not discussing hyperpyrexia here we are discussing fever. The causes for hyperpyrexia are pontine hemorrhage, meningococcus meningitis, septicemia, cerebral malaria, neuroleptic malignant syndrome. That is very important. Neuroleptic malignant syndrome is one of the cause for hyperpyrexia. It has got a very important clinical feature, that is many drugs can produce neuroleptic malignant syndrome. Heat stroke, thyroid storm, all these things can produce hyperpyrexia. Now, whenever patient have fever, most of the patients complain about chills and rigor. This is especially seen in urinary tract infection or malaria, like infectious fever you can get it. It's a sensation of cold which occurs when the thermostat situated in the hypothalamus is suddenly reset to a higher temperature due to presence of pyogens. So, chills, many patients complain when there is fever. Rigor is profound chill with piloerection. It's especially seen in urinary tract infection, malaria, cholecystitis, lobar pneumonia. Many patients can have severe sweating after fever. That is a mechanism to control the body temperature or to reduce the high body temperature. So, sweating can be there associated with many types of fever, especially in malaria. Malaria patients will have high degree fever, suddenly patient sweats and the temperature comes down. Okay. Now we can see different patterns of fever. The most important pattern is continuous fever. That means sustained. Patient is having continuously the same type of fever or same degree of fever. In that temperature elevation is persistent without touching the baseline. Fluctuation does not exceed more than 1 degree Celsius. It's mainly seen in lobar pneumonia, infective endocarditis. So, infective endocarditis and all, continuously patient will have fever because continuously bacterial shedding is there from the heart. Okay. Now, another fever is intermittent fever. The elevated temperature touches the baseline at least once in 24 hours. Is mainly seen in malaria. Malaria patients, if you see malaria patients, you will understand this. Patient will have high degree fever. After sweating, the temperature comes down to normal, and sometimes they can have hypothermia also. Then again fever comes back. Okay, that is intermittent fever. So, classically in malaria, every third day you can get malaria. Now, remittent fever, another type of fever. Here the temperature falls each day, but not touching the baseline. Fluctuation exceeds 2 degrees Celsius, but it never touches the baseline. It's seen in typhoid. It's something like a continuous fever, but sometimes fever comes down, but it never touches the baseline and it keep on increasing. Relapsing fever, fever episodes are separated by long intervals. Pell-Epstein type fever is a type of relapsing fever. It's mainly seen in Hodgkin's or non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It's a cyclical type of fever lasting 3 to 10 days followed by a febrile period for 3 to 10 days. It's a main feature of lymphomas. Pell-Epstein type of fever. Tertian fever, fever occurs in every third day. Cotton fever, fever occurs in every fourth day. Quotidian fever means every day fever can occur. Evening rise of temperature, which is very important. It is classically seen in tuberculosis. Tuberculosis patients can present with very low temperature, especially in the evening hours. This is called as evening rise of temperature. High degree evening fever is seen in lymphomas with night sweats. So, TB will produce low grade fever, which is evening rise, but lymphoma will have high degree fever, that also evening rise, but that will be associated with severe sweating. Now, you can see different patterns. This is remittent and intermittent fever. So, we have already discussed that remittent and intermittent fever. Intermittent fever touches the baseline, remittent fever does not touch the baseline. This is the main difference between remittent and intermittent, but however, these patients will have small relapses, small brief period of relapse can be there. Now, quotidian, tertian and cotton fever, this is classically seen in malarial type of fever. Tertian fever, every third day patient can have fever. Cotton fever, every fourth day patient can have fever. Quotidian fever, severe type of malaria where the interval between fever attacks vary from several hours to 2 days. So, that is whatever it is, these all are cyclical type of fever. Now, Pell-Epstein fever we have already discussed, it's a cyclical fever. 3-4 days patient will have 3 to 10 days patient will have fever, then 3 to 10 days patient will not have fever. Mainly in lymphoma you get it, Hodgkin's lymphoma. Remember, this type of fever occurs mainly in the evening time, high degree fever associated with sweating. Now step ladder fever is another important type of fever. You can see here it is like a step ladder. The fever slowly increases every day. Patient's fever is increasing, it never come back to normal. Okay, without treatment it never come back to normal. You can see the quarter tongue in this patient. This is classical finding seen in typhoid fever. Step ladder fever and quarter tongue, relative bradycardia, all are features of typhoid fever. So if you see somebody's fever is every day increasing without any antibiotic, means it is mostly typhoid fever. But nowadays when the patient takes paracetamol, all these patterns can be abnormal, or so suddenly patient will have normal temperature during paracetamol or whatever it is. So this is step ladder fever. Every day patient's fever is increasing if we are not initiating antibiotics, it is going to increase every day and patient will become toxic. Relative bradycardia is one important condition classically described in typhoid fever, brucellosis, dengue fever and drug fever. Every 1 degree Fahrenheit will produce 10 extra pulse beats, that is normal. If you are not seeing that response, like high degree, if there is a fever, high degree fever, the pulse rate is not increasing to that temperature, means it is relative bradycardia. Remember that it is not bradycardia, the response to that degree of temperature is not seen, that is called as relative bradycardia. Remember, patients who are on beta blockers can also have similar finding, but this is classically described in typhoid fever. Drug fever is another condition where patient will have fever, patient will not have tachycardia, patient will not be toxic. That may be produced by some drug like injection, antibiotics and all can produce drug fever. So once you stop that antibiotic, patient will be absolutely normal. This occurs whenever when a patient is treated with antibiotic for an infection. Once the infection is sets in, this patient continuously can have fever because of the drug. Once we stop the drug, fever subsides. So remember, drug fever is a very important condition. Patients who are all on antibiotic for a prolonged period can have this drug fever. We will be unnecessarily investigating this patient for another type of infection. Just stop the drug, fever will come back. Here the patient will have high degree fever, but patient is not toxic, pulse rate is normal. Okay, typhoid fever is another important condition. Slowly every day patient have increasing in fever, that is step ladder fever, quarter tongue, relative bradycardia. Now fever with cardiac conduction problem also can produce this type of relative bradycardia, especially in Lyme's disease and viral myocarditis can have relative bradycardia. Fever fall by crisis or lysis. Here patient will have high degree fever, suddenly fever comes down drastically within 6 to 12 hours. It will be associated with severe sweating. It is commonly seen in lobar pneumonia, Hendrick fever, perforation, Hendrick fever with perforation and septicemia. Lysis, temperature falls gradually over several days, commonly seen in uncomplicated Hendrick fever and rheumatic fever. Now evening rise of temperature we have already described, it is very classical of tuberculosis. Slowly the fever increases, but it is not a high degree fever, very low degree temperature, evening rise occurs. This is classically described in tuberculosis, but in lymphoma also this is described, there the fever will be high degree temperature. In tuberculosis there will be production of interleukins and tumor necrosis factor, but during daytime, because of cortisol levels are elevated, cortisol releases in the early morning, it will maintain till the evening. Once during the evening period the cortisol level slowly comes down and the interleukins and tumor necrosis factor can produce low grade fever during that period. So that is very classically seen in tuberculosis. It's a slowly growing infection, so you don't get a high degree fever, very low degree fever, but that will be masked by the cortisol level in the daytime, and once the evening time occurs, during evening time the cortisol level comes down and fever can come back to it can produce symptoms. Whenever patient is having fever, we have to check other finding, associated finding like jaundice, hepatitis, neck stiffness, meningitis, lymphadenopathy. Many infections like infectious mononucleosis, TB can have lymphadenopathy. Absent peripheral pulses, Takayasu disease. Organ findings like aspiration pneumonia, cardiac murmurs like infective endocarditis, hepatosplenomegaly. Many infections or inflammatory conditions can have hepatosplenomegaly. Skin rashes, adult Still's disease or viral fevers, all can have fever with rashes. Joint swellings are seen in many rheumatological conditions including rheumatoid arthritis, SLE. Muscle tenderness, polymyositis, or any infections, bacterial infections like leptospira, dengue fever can have muscle tenderness. So whenever we have a fever, complete head to toe examination is very important so that you will get a differential diagnosis for fever. Fever with rash are classically seen in measles, rubella, infectious mononucleosis, HIV infections, scarlet fever, Hendrick fever, other viral exanthematous fevers, SLE and adult Still's disease. Now, febrile neutropenia is one condition where the neutrophil counts are very low either because of bone marrow problem or due to drugs or due to some infection. When the neutrophils are very low, bacterial infection can occur that can produce problem in the patient. This is called as febrile neutropenia. Fever in elderly, that is very important. You don't expect a high degree fever in an elderly person like a young person because their immune system is not very good, because their immune system may not respond to an infection like a younger individual. So they have low grade fever but the infection may be very severe, that we should remember. Other terminologies are factitious fever. There is no actual fever, it is a false elevation temperature produced by the person itself. Febrile convulsions classically seen in the children age less than 5 years. Whenever fever is there, patient can have seizures. But a patient who is having seizure itself can have high degree fever or high temperature. That is not febrile convulsion. Febrile convulsion classically described in young children. Whenever patient is having fever, patient can have convulsions, but after some years it will disappear. It is not a continuous seizure activity. Drug fevers, we already described. Many drugs can produce fever. Whenever we are giving these drugs, patient can have fever, but patients are not toxic. Remember, drug fever, patient will have high degree temperature, normal pulse rate, and patients are not toxic. This is very important. Pyrexia of unknown origin is, after 2 weeks extensive investigation, we are not able to find out any cause for the fever, then it is classified as pyrexia of unknown origin or fever of unknown origin. Okay. So there are different causes for pyrexia of unknown origin. I cannot explain all these things now, but by definition, fever more than 38.3 degrees Celsius, duration of fever lasts 3 weeks, uncertain diagnosis after 1 week of study in the hospital. That is very important. In the hospital, we have to investigate this patient and not able to find out any reason, then it can be classified as pyrexia of unknown origin. So there are a lot of investigation can be done to find out what is the reason for the fever, including a PET scan that can pick up most of the lesions which are occult in our body. Now, when we have fever, when a patient come with fever to emergency room, normally we give, or in OPD we give paracetamol. That is a ideal drug can be given for this patient. We can give 500 milligram 3 times daily or 650 milligram 3 times daily, or even we can give IV paracetamol if the patient cannot take paracetamol, that is available in 1 gram. Remember, over usage of paracetamol can produce some liver injury, but a normal person can take up to 4 grams without any problem. So in a patient who is having liver disease and all, more than 4 grams it can produce problem. That's why I am restricting to 4 grams. So 4 grams there may not be any problem. So we should judiciously use IV paracetamol. We can give paracetamol tablet. So there are some compelling indications for antipyretics: coexisting heart disease, cerebrovascular accident, epileptic patients, febrile convulsions, pregnancy, psychiatric illness. Remember, some patients can have allergy to paracetamol. In that type of patients, we can go for NSAIDs if permits. If there is no thrombocytopenia, no renal failure, NSAIDs can be tried, or we can try steroids that also produce similar effect of paracetamol, but unnecessary use of steroids should not be done. Or if the patient is allergic to NSAIDs or we are not able to give steroids, hydroxychloroquine also can be given, because hydroxychloroquine is an antipyretic action is there, but routinely we don't use all these things. We use paracetamol only. If there is allergic and we cannot use steroids, if they are still allergic to NSAIDs, we can try hydroxychloroquine. It is mainly used in malaria. We know that when patient is having malaria, we use chloroquine tablet that has got an antipyretic action. So we have discussed about various types of fever, differential diagnosis. In an emergency room, we will not be able to extensively investigate this patient. So whenever we have a pattern, we have seen a pattern of fever, we can treat accordingly in emergency room itself, and we can send investigation and find out what may be the reason for this fever. Fever can be due to infection, inflammation, malignancy, or factitious fever. So we can, if we know the differential diagnosis, we can treat better. Thank you.